Welcome to the 86th video in our series about Unix tools. In this video, I'm going to continue showing you how to use Git for a simple one-person project. In this video, I'll use Git in typical ways and explain what I'm doing. But first, let's review what we did in the last video. In the previous video, we tuned our Git repository to default to Git status short because we like the short status. I say we, but I like the short status. And I use this command shown. Again, using local to make sure it only changes this repository and not any other. We used several Git commands at this point. Git log shows history in reverse order with the newest change first and the oldest change last. Git short log sorts in the same sort of way as you often see on websites. It groups things by the committer and then puts them in ascending order with newest last. Git status shows you information about changes, whether there are any changes at all, if the changes have been added to be staged or not. And Git status long tells you a little bit more verbosely the same thing, but it gives hints about what to do, which the Git status short, which we have now made the default, does not give hints. I showed a git diff to show you the difference between any two revisions using their hashes that uniquely identify them. We've done git add several times, and we've done git commit several times. So let's dive in. Here we are, we're working in the directory. Let's say that we ran a make and we ran a test and everything was great, and we said git status. Now look what happened. You have lots of files and there are two question marks. What that tells you is those files are not tracked by Git. So Git status saw them, but it couldn't compare them to the version in the repository because there is no version in the repository. Actually, we don't want Git to look at .o files at all. We don't want it to look at .a files at all. You know, that's not something that we store because those are generated. You could say I should have done a make clean or a make dist clean before I did the git status, but I didn't. And so what most people do is they use something called the gitignore file. So let's create one. Use your favorite text editor to get this job done. It has to be this particular name, gitignore. And then you put in some patterns. And we say, I don't want any star.o. I don't want any star.a. And since we're in here anyway, we don't want any star.so or any of that. And we don't want any core files if we did a segmentation fault core dump. So those are all files we don't want to track. And if we do a git status now, you can see, okay, it stopped looking at the .os and the .a. It's still looking at the gitignore, and it's looking at the test me. Well, we should probably add the gitignore and commit that to the repo, the repository. Now if I do a git status, gitignore has been marked for add, and its A is in column 1, which means it's staged. The next commit will put that in. We're still seeing test me here, and that's a tough one because it doesn't really have a pattern. It's sort of dangerous to add it You could, and for this project it might make sense, so let's do it. You just have to be sure that that name is not somehow special to the Unix system, but once we add it, we're going to see something strange. We see AM. And what does that mean? Well, the first column says it's been added. Oh, I can't mark one column. But the first column says it's been added, and the second column says, but there are changes after that. After you added, you made some changes. So you have to do a git add again. It's a little confusing, but that will fix the problem. As you see, that M goes away because we've added those changes. You need to think of git add not as add file, but add changes, which might include a new file. Okay, so with that gitignore in place, we don't get any messages even though we've got all these generated files, okay, in the directory. And if we do what we should have done and do a disk clean first, everything's still okay. So we should commit that change. Okay, we put in a commit message. And if we get log, you'll see here it is at the top. That commit message we just had. It's kind of long, sort of reaching the limit of how long one line should be, but most people have wide terminals, so it shouldn't be too bad. And that shows you how to use gitignore. If your project expands and you have some other new sort of generated files, you can update your gitignore and recommit it. That gitignore should be done per project. And you can see it's right here. So, good. We've learned another technique. Now, the whole point of version control is to track what happened and all the changes everywhere. What if I just want to know what's in this commit? You know, pick one. There, we'll use this one. I want to know what's in that commit. How can I find out what's in that commit? The syntax is a little weird. But there it is. You do a git diff with the number of the commit you want, and then this symbol, wow, my mouse and this terminal are not friends. There it is. The Shift 6 on your keyboard. Some people call that the caret or the hat. And then dot dot, and then the same number again. And this will show us this commit. What the hat means is parent of the hash on the left. And you think, wow, couldn't I just do that and that? And yes, you get the same thing. But the difference is you have to know both of those numbers. With this, I only need to know the actual hash of this commit, and then we let Git figure out what number's on the left instead of having to do a git log and go find that hash. Which is better. Most people use something like this, but there are other ways to do it. One of the things you'll learn about Git, like I said, is similar to VI. It's quite complex. There are many levels of knowledge. I'm going to try to teach you what you need to know to get by. If you want to be an expert, you can go to YouTube, and there are videos for people who want to learn more. But I just want to give you enough so you can survive Git and track your changes to your homeworks or your small projects, and you can get back to them. So one of the things you want from Git is to be able to go back and look at some old version, right? Maybe somebody calls you up and they said, I'm on this version, and they know the hash number, and they say, I've got a problem. How do I make the computer give me that version that I can use? Well, you do git checkout and that number, and it warns you. It warns you with all this long messages. You're in the detached head. And what they really mean to tell you is, you can look, but don't make any changes. Yes, there are tutorials on the web that will show you how to branch and do all that, but I told you we're using a linear style. This should be done read only. But if we take a look at the files, now, if we do a git log, you see it stops on that commit that we asked for. And if we look at the file, make file 2, we know that's got the change, but we should not see the change in Taylor sign that we just did. So let's take a look. Remember, we just changed the scope of the variable and the initialization for Taylor sign. None of those changes are here because we're looking at an old version. We've gone back in time. How do we change the system so that we can go back to our latest version and keep working? You do a git checkout master, and you get this message. And now when we do a git log, you can see, yes, we've got this ignore patterns, and the ignore file is here. So let's do it one more time. Check out that old one and take a look. There's no gitignore file. Yes, Git is so smart it can add and remove files to make your working copy be exactly like it was at this commit. But when you're in detached head state, never make a change. You need to git checkout master when you're done. Don't forget this step. And then everything's good, you're ready to work, you can start committing changes again. But this allows you to go back and take a look at any old version. All right, that's enough for one video. We drug on a little long this time. Sorry about that. I'll try to do better next time when we'll look further at Git. But until then, thank you for listening.